So one election finishes and another starts. It's 3 weeks from today will be the special election for the 61st Senatorial District, the district that was held by Sean Ryan, now the mayor of the city of Buffalo. And so we have with us today Dan Gagliardo. So you know that Dan ran an excellent race for supervisor in the town of Amherst. He wasn't successful, but he showed how a race needs to be run. He came extremely close as when you look at the numbers in Amherst and the uphill battle that it was. He was very aggressive. He knocked on thousands of household doors, and so he's become very well known now in the town of Amherst. So the Sean Ryan seat is the 61st Senatorial District. It is parts of the city of Buffalo, parts of the city of Tonawanda. It is the town of Tonawanda, the town of Amherst, the town of Grand Island, the village of Kenmore, and the village of Williamsville. So we have the town of Amherst, where Dan is now well known, and we've got these other parts of the municipality in that district. The numbers are, well, we'll talk about the numbers soon. There's an overlay of Democrats clearly in this district. But when you look at a special election, you're looking at a whole different animal. You're looking at a very low voter turnout. You're looking at the potential for a primary, or not a primary, but you're looking for the potential that the working families might endorse John Rivera, who wants this seat, and the Democratic Party will endorse Jeremy Zellner, the Democratic chairman. If that happens, that splits that vote and gives Dan another advantage to some of the advantages he already has. So, Dan, welcome to the show today. It's very interesting. You just finished one race, and now here we are, ready to go for another.
Ralph, thanks for inviting me. I wasn't thinking that this was going to happen, but I had the opportunity to meet with the leadership on the local level with Bob and Mike Crocker, and then the state got involved. Ed Cox, they all got a hold of me and asked me if I was willing to do it. And I had time to talk to my family and ask them. And I had to step back and ask myself as to why would I do this? And, Ralph, I really enjoyed campaigning, and I enjoyed going and talking to residents. It was the greatest part of the election. I also felt that we had made such inroads in the election that I didn't want it to stop. I thought that if I could take that voice and I can expand it into a larger area, because it was the same topics that we were talking about,
sure,
taxes and utilities and all that.
It's the same issues.
It's the same issues. But I also felt like I needed to continue this. So my wife and I, we talked, and the family, and everybody was all for it. So I got into the mindset that the supervisor race was a prelude to this, that this is where I was supposed to end up in the long run. So I'm excited about it.
So tell me this. It's 3 weeks from now, the 24th, is the first day of early voting. So the actual race is February 3rd, but we start voting 3 weeks from today. It's January. It's cold outside. You're not going to be able to go door to door the same way you did throughout Amherst. So how do you plan to attack this race?
Well, I think that you mentioned that we had a very good success. 14,600 people voted for us in Amherst and Williamsville. So I'm hoping that we can get those people to come out. We're going to have to do a lot of calls, phone calls. I am going to go door to door. I'm going to go to certain areas and do that.
You better wear warm clothes.
Oh, I will definitely do that. But I also think that I'm expansive, Ralph. And what I mean by that is my businesses are in Williamsville and Amherst, but I owned Awnings Plus in Tonawanda for many years.
Oh.
So which was a very, very good company, and I sold it to Kohler. So I've got roots there, and I need to make inroads in the city of Buffalo. And Grand Island.
Grand Island we have.
Well,
We're going to take care of Grand Island.
but I think that I have to nip at it. We have to go after the people who already know me and concentrate on pockets of these areas and try to get the turnout.
So we have Bob Davis here with us again today. Bob, as you know, is now the chairman of the town of Amherst, was the chairman for a decade of Erie County. So, Bob, tell me your take on this race. I heard you explain that you believe there's going to be very low voter turnout. We have an opportunity here. So,
absolutely. A special election on February 3rd. First of all, I don't understand Governor Hochul, but you know what? I never have understood Governor Hochul.
No one does at this point. Downstate Kathy Hochul.
Yeah, yesterday, the second day of the new year, she issues the proclamation to call the special election in 32 days. She had until January 10th to call the date, and then she had 30 to 90 days after that to call the date of the actual election.
Right.
But no, she's not going to give us 60 days or 90 days to wage a campaign so that Dan has an opportunity to expose Jeremy Zellner for being the political boss that he is, and Dan to talk about his success as a business owner and creating private sector jobs. No, she's going to call the election in 32 days. So assuming that, the Democrats will have a decided advantage. It's party politics is normal with the Democrats. It's almost incestual.
We do because we can. I think that's their model. We do because we can. Not that it has anything to do.
They don't care about the taxpayer.
The electorate. It doesn't benefit anybody. We do because we can. And certainly it gives the advantage to the Democrats to call this election that quickly so that we have less of an opportunity to be out there. But the numbers, Bob. Tell me about the numbers in this special election.
Well, the numbers are daunting. But you know what? They're daunting in the town of Amherst, too. We're down to the Democrats in enrollment by 15%. And look what Dan did. Look what Dan did on November the 4th. He got almost 15,000 votes in the town of Amherst. I'll tell you right now, he gets 15,000 votes on February 3rd. He's the next state senator.
So those are the numbers I want to concentrate on. The amount of turnout, what you expect in turnout, and what we need to deliver.
I'm expecting a turnout of 10 to 12%, and that's if the sun is shining and the wind's not blowing and it's 35 degrees on February 3rd. Unlikely in all counts. So 10%, 12%. 10%, 12%, I'm saying 15 to 18,000 votes will win this election. Dan got almost 15,000 in the race for town supervisor, and we can add to that the town of Tonawanda, the city of Tonawanda, the town of Grand Island, and there's 6 wards in the city of Buffalo, including the North, University, Delaware, Niagara, Maston, and Ellicott. I think Dan can if we can get that 15,000 vote count in Amherst that he got on November 4th out to vote, Dan will be the next state senator, despite the enrollment disadvantage.
So the strategy, Dan, is to get to that number. So we have pretty good data to be able to tell us what a special election is going to be, especially one in February 3rd. It's going to be a very low voter turnout, as Bob has just described. And so it's a question of figuring out what that number is and then counting those votes. And like Bob said, you have a tremendous amount already in Amherst. If you had all those people who came out and voted for you in Amherst, if they came out and voted for you in the special election, you're going to win the special election, not counting the rest. That's what it appears like, right?
I think it's a really good point. I want to say something. Even though the numbers are daunting, we have 50,000 blanks too that are going out there. Right. And let's not forget that we turned a lot of Democrats. And the reason we did that was because, look, Ralph, I was a Democrat. I'm a Republican right now. And
a conservative Republican.
A conservative Republican, thank you. But I want to say this. I'm the only one out of all the candidates that understand about all parties, not because of the change in party affiliation, but remember something, for the last 30 years of my life has been to service people. I never asked them whether they're Democrat or Republican, and I think this is an important point to make for this particular election. The difference here is that people want a change. The political boss system that we have in front of us right now is so prevalent with what Jeremy Zellner did. He ousted Scanlon, to put Ryan where he wanted, to get him exactly where he is. That's why Rivera is coming out with him so strongly, because it's not fair. This is the message that we have to get out. And if I can concentrate on the people who I've talked to, go after the other people to have them and understand exactly what this point is, and not make this about a party affiliation, because who is the best person to run this, to have this seat? Do you want somebody who has never signed the front of a check, only the back? Do you want somebody who understands budgets? Do you want somebody who understands about people, who has serviced people his entire existence without ever asking them what their party affiliation is? Zellner can't say that.
That's
he can't.
right.
And here's another thing. He is in the deficit position, because the 30 days are going to work against him, because now he has somebody who's been out there, who's been campaigning for 10 months and hasn't stopped. So I think that's a good base to win this seat.
You know, Ralph, the contrast between these candidates could not be clearer. You got a successful businessman. Dan Gagliardo has created private sector jobs. I don't know if Jeremy Zellner has ever had a private sector job.
No, he hasn't.
You know, he's a political boss. He was a commissioner of the Board of Elections, which is a political appointed job. He's chairman of the Democratic Party. By the way, he wants to retain his position as chairman of the Democratic Party in Erie County and represent you in the state Senate.
Incredible.
Do you think he's going to give a hoot about issues important to the people of the town of Tonawanda, the town of Amherst, Grand Island, Buffalo, city of Tonawanda? Or is he going to be voting party line along with all of the other Democrats that control this state? The state assembly is controlled by the Democrats. The state senate is controlled by the Democrats. The governor's a Democrat. The attorney general's a Democrat. The comptroller's a Democrat. And we're going to put the Democratic county chairman from Erie County in as the state senator to represent these communities? I don't think the voters should reject that without a doubt. Let's put a business guy that knows how to create private sector jobs in that seat. And like Dan said, he was a former Democrat, and he's a Republican today. But when you go into his restaurant, like he said, he doesn't ask you if you're a Republican or Democrat before he takes your order. He services you. He's going to service the constituents in this district, regardless of their party affiliation, and Jeremy Zellner cannot say that.
So I'm just looking up. The largest part of this district is Amherst. So Amherst is 42.1% of this district. Then we fall to the town of Tonawanda, which is 25.2%. And Buffalo's only 19.5%. Grand Island, unfortunately, is 8.3%, but Grand Island people will go out and vote. The city of Tonawanda is 4.9%. So Amherst, the largest district, 42.1%, is a place that you've visited how many homes?
I knocked on 12,000 homes.
12,000 homes.
12,000 homes. I spoke to over 6,000 people in those homes. We had a really good success ratio. I got to tell you a story really quick. I was, for New Year's Eve, I went to 800 Maple to eat. And I walked in, and we went early because we don't stay out late on New Year's Eve. And there was a group of people there. And I walked in, and it was about 15 people. And they all looked at me and said, "Oh, Mr. Supervisor, we're so sorry that you lost." Yeah. I said, "Well, we have another chance at this." They said, "We know. We know if you're running for Senate, we're behind you." That has happened to me every single day since the election.
We're here talking with Dan Gagliardo, who's going to run in the 61st Senatorial District, the special election that's going to take place on February 3rd here. The early voting is going to start 3 weeks from today. January 24th will be early voting. So this is essentially a 3 to 4 week race that Dan's got himself into. It covers parts of the city of Buffalo, parts of the city of Tonawanda, all of the town of Tonawanda, all of the town of Amherst, all of the town of Grand Island, the village of Kenmore, and the village of Williamsville. So Dan has been talking to us about his plan to win this seat. I'm convinced that given what Dan's up against, Jeremy Zellner, the Democratic chair for the last 14 years, who's never had a job outside of politics. John Rivera, who also wants this seat, and his people will not be there for Jeremy Zellner. Dan, you got a shot at this seat.
I think I do. I know I do. And I think one of the reasons why I was so optimistic about this, at first, when I thought about it, I wasn't sure. And then when you start doing some research on it and how it works and what it's all about, I thought to myself, the reason why we were successful in turning Democrats and Republicans all together for this past election was because we were talking about everyday issues. That's right. Issues that people wanted. We weren't talking about, everything's divisive right now, Ralph. Everything that we see today, the federal government, the state government, everything is like that. People really are tired of that. Even Rivera said that yesterday. People are tired of the lack of transparency. The point is that Zellner completely is doing opposite of everything that people want. He's not giving the people the opportunity to do this. But the best part about it is people see through that. So from now until the 24th, let's see what Mr. Zellner does. I will bet you that he lays down. I bet you he just tries to get by to do as much, to just have people go out to vote, because he's assuming that the Democrats have enough to win this. Well, here's the problem. He has no clue what he's up against with me. I will outwork him every day.
I don't doubt that.
I don't doubt it either.
Let me bring this up too, Chairman. There are some really important issues that face Western New York, and they're not issues that should be decided by party line. And we have one party rule in this state, and you're gonna have a candidate on the Democratic line that's the Democratic Party chairman. Do you think he's going to be able to compromise himself on those critical issues facing this state? We got issues like the HALT Act. We got issues like the electrification of New York State. You got utility costs going through the roof. And you got.
Can I just interrupt you? Just one thing to that
Sure,
point.
yeah.
I don't mean to do that to you, but I think what's most important. Let's talk about this no tax on tips, for instance.
Yes.
Okay. Let's just talk about this. We knew about this. Why didn't Governor Hochul put this in the budget last year for 26 for this year? Why? The only reason that we're talking about it now is because we've come out. Myself, the Blakeman, all of those people come out against her because he did nothing about it. Where was Rivera? Where was Zellner? Where were all the politicians, and I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican, talking about this to make sure it was in the budget? Where is it? And all of a sudden now this is a huge issue. Do you know the people that work for me didn't have a clue that it wasn't happening in 26?
In New York State.
In New York State. This is like a huge issue. This is not about party lines. This is about people's livelihoods. You talk about affordability. This is affordability.
Yeah, Jeremy Zellner wants to tell you, and Kathy Hochul, they're for the working man, working woman.
They didn't prove that.
Why didn't they enact what President Trump did at the federal level?
Because President Trump did it.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
And it's all about party politics, which brings me back to the party boss in Erie County that wants to be our state senator.
So, again, this is a doable race, and when you win, Dan, this is going to be a monumental win for you. But as I see it unfold, it is a doable situation. You are a very hard worker. Jeremy won't be. If Rivera gets in this race, that certainly divides the Democrats. But even if he doesn't, Rivera's people will still, they still sit home.
Do you think Chris Scanlon's people are going to help Jeremy Zellner?
That's exactly right. So there are people. Jeremy is not a commodity out there. He's been the Democratic chair for 14 years. He was behind India Walton. He carries the Democratic line, which has gone further and further and further to the left, endorsing Socialistic Democrat Sean Ryan so that he could have Sean Ryan's seat.
He supports the new mayor of the city of New York, who's a communist.
So, look, it's a doable race. I still want people to know more about you. We've talked about your background on this show before, but let's talk about your background so people know the quality of the person, what you've done, what you've accomplished, what your business has been. So tell us about that.
Well, I started off in government. I was the director of environmental inspections for the city of Niagara Falls in my 30s. When Galley won, I was appointed. I worked there for about 3 years, and it was a great job. It was really something else, and I moved on to corporate America and started working for different various corporations in the sales area. And then I opened up Devolio, which I own currently, and I sit on the board of Independent Health. I've been on there for 7 years. So my background has been very well rounded. I have a master's in public administration, and
So you have the education and the business experience.
Yes, and I think all of us know in this room that not that it's a prerequisite that you're a business person, but I think that it helps you understand what happens each and every day. It's difficult when you have to make a payroll. It's difficult at these times.
You know, to me, if you're not the business person, and so many politicians are politicians their entire career, as is Jeremy, you can't connect with people who have to make payroll or people who work for someone. It's not the same. I mean, you need to be on this side of all of that to understand the typical constituents' frustration with government, and what can be done to help that typical constituent. I don't see that the career politician has that. That's why I'm very happy to see a background like yours get into politics. That's what the forefathers meant, was that we'd have this kind of well-rounded situation.
Yesterday, when I had the interview with Nate Benson, he asked me a question. How are you going to, assume you win, how are you going to work with Albany and getting things, through? And I said, look, first and foremost, as a business person, you have to adjust to every position at all times. Bad times, good times, all that. We need to work. I'm going to have to work with Mayor Ryan, Supervisor Lavin, Grand Island, Tonawanda. You have to understand their needs, and you can't be afraid to say that I agree with you about things that you need to do that. As a businessman, my entire life, you have to do that every day. You have no choice, because you have to make sure that you're building this consensus around you. So to me, this is exactly what you need to do. You go to Albany, you understand how it works. Here's the difference between me and everyone else. You're going to know when I win, I'm going to go to Albany. Number one, I'm going to make sure that we either get this tax on tips for something this year, or I'm going to vote for it for the budget because I'll be part of that budget. But also, the fact remains is I need to make sure I go out there and I need to let everybody know, my constituents in 61, exactly how it works in Albany and why things don't get done, or what we're voting on and what we're not voting on. Think about this for 1 second. Can anybody tell me how the legislature works? Do the constituents know this? Do they know what they're voting on? Does anybody tell them this? There is this inherent belief that if we don't tell the population, that's good. Well, I don't believe that. I believe that people have to understand it. And if we can build a big enough base, and we can have the people understand what's going on in 61, we have a voice. If that voice is loud enough, we'll get things done. We'll be able to do it. And think about this too. If I win, when I win, I'm hoping that the federal government, because I won, starts sending money to us because I won. If we can utilize that position, why not? Why wouldn't we do that? Don't think that we're not in trouble in the next couple of years because we're not going to have enough money. It's already predicted that the state of New York is going to have a shortfall huge in 27, which Mark Poloncarz has already said, and Hartwick has already confirmed. So all this stuff's going to happen. So people need to think about the future and who's going to bring things home.
People need to think about the future, Dan. And if they want politics as usual in Erie County, in New York State, then elect the career politician. If you want a fresh start, somebody that's going to listen to Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, independents, then elect a businessman that has created jobs in this community, has signed the front side of a paycheck, and that guy's Dan Gagliardo. We have a chance in Senate 61 to send a message across this state that we're done, we're tired of politics as usual, We're done with one-party rule, and it's time the taxpayers had a voice, and that's Dan Gagliardo.
So, Dan, I want to talk about some specific issues. There are a number of issues that face people in this community. The electric mandate. So, to me, Kathy Hochul allowed a pause to take place because it's an election year for her. But that is only a pause. They intend on taking away our right to choose natural gas. That bill was supposed to take effect a couple of days ago. She put it on pause, again, politically. But if she's elected and, the Democrats take control, we will not be able to have a choice to have gas. Now, there are Democrats in this area who don't agree with Hochul's situation. Sean Ryan, though, did agree. So you would be a voice for the people to give them that choice. Isn't that the case?
Absolutely. And I want, there's a couple things here. There's these competing forces. The problem is that let's just take the grid first. Our grid is in bad shape. They say it's going to take 20 years to build it up.
20 years, right.
20 years. So if that's the case, in 20 years, how are you going to do this, and how is it going to handle that? So whoever's thinking about this, the people, the environmentalists and all that, how are they thinking that we're going to do this? Now, they talk about nuclear power, which is going to take another 12 years to build anyways. So the plan is not correct. And this is a 20% increase in the cost of building. She passed the bill for that 100-foot rule for national fuel. That's going to cost $14,000 for every family who wants to build a home now, more, just because of that rule. So whoever is advising her is not advising her about what we see each and every day. Go talk to every builder. Go talk to all of them. All of them will tell you they were trying to rush to get their plans in at the end of the year for Amherst because they just didn't want to have to deal with this electrification. It's not a thought-out process. She's pandering to the environmentalists. Sean Ryan did. They all did this. Why? Because they think that this is where their base is. They need to start talking to people. Go knock on 12,000 doors, and I'll bet you they don't do the same thing.
But the way I see it, so she did have Sean Ryan. I get that. But these are downstate people that are mostly for this bill. We have some Democrats, Western New York Democrats, who are with us on this issue because this is a Western New York issue. That's what this is. People died in Buffalo when we lost electric power. This is a Western New York issue. We have Western New York Democrats. So you'd be a voice for these Western New York individuals about this very important topic in terms of a choice.
Well, you asked me about how I'm going to do it. I'm going to work with those Democrats. I'm going to come out with those Democrats. I'm going to make sure everybody knows that I'm coming out with those Democrats about this particular issue, and we're going to work together. I'm not afraid to show people I want to work with you. You have to. You can't do it any other way. We've become so polarized that people are afraid to do that. To that point, Ralph, we've got to talk to those Democrats. We got to get them on board, and we have to do this each and every day, and we have to have a louder voice.
I totally agree with you, and I totally think it can be accomplished. Getting rid of Sean Ryan is getting rid of a very, well, I'll call him a socialistic Democrat. Putting Jeremy Zellner there is getting the same thing you had with Sean Ryan, a socialistic Democrat, a person who endorsed Sean Ryan, who endorsed India Walton, who stands behind Mendami, who, is going to be that side of the aisle.
I actually think, Ralph, he's more dangerous than a Sean Ryan or a Mandami because he understands and he wields power. That's the kind of guy he is. He's gotten himself in trouble. And that's what we should be concerned about. This man taking over that job with that type of attitude. And his record proves it.
Well, the other thing we should not lose sight of, Jeremy Zellner's been the county chairman for almost 14 years. How long's Kathy Hochul been in Democratic politics? And she's from Erie County. Jeremy Zellner was a Democratic Party chairman when she was a member of Congress, when she was the county clerk, when she became lieutenant governor, and now governor. Who do you think Jeremy Zellner is going to fall in line with?
No, there's no question. All
Kathy
right,
Hochul.
We're here again with Dan Gagliardo, who is running the first race of this year, the special election in the 61st Senatorial District. It's an uphill battle, but Dan knows that. He's got a plan. He's got an attack. And he's got the issues on his side. So we've been talking about the issues. So, Dan, to me, the issues, again, on the top of everyone's mind is affordability, safety. Talk to us a little bit about those issues, affordability, safety.
Well, we started talking about the no tax on tips. I mean, affordability, we should be helping all of our waiters and waitresses to be able to do that. I think that they're remiss waiting another year to do that. Also, utility costs. I can't tell you how my National Grid bill has went up as a small business owner.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just outrageous.
Yeah.
So we're facing that, and the $400 that she gave to us doesn't even cover the amount of dollars that we're paying extra in that. And she has so much to say about this and do about it. This electrification is only going to make that worse. So this is not a good thing that we have. Also, taxes. I mean, we're one of the highest tax states. In Amherst alone, they went up 11% in 1 year. Why? Because they're spending more than they make. The state's doing the exact same thing. We need to have caps. We need to make sure that we're giving our seniors back some dollars. We need to be able to do those types of things. Who's that voice? Who's saying those things about that? And crime? Look, this cashless bail? Come on. Go talk to any police department. Anywhere. Not just in the state of New York, anywhere. Any place that has this will tell you it doesn't work. We were talking to the police chief in Amherst and other police officers, and they will tell you, you bring these people in, they're out. They can't keep them. They go out and do the exact same thing. It's repeat offenders that are going on. What have they done about it, Ralph? What have they done to stop this? Nobody's out there. Where are the politicians? Where are any of our politicians talking about this? Go talk to any police officer. They will tell you. They just want to retire. They want to get out and they want to be done. Because it's so difficult. Go talk to the new police recruits that are in there. They will tell you how difficult it is to do their job. These are things that, why aren't people talking about this? And who is fighting for this in Albany?
To me, it's in terms of the Democrats versus the Republicans or the liberals versus the conservatives, the liberals have always gone after the have-nots, and they pander to those people. And the problem is they don't raise the level of those people. They keep them have not, where they don't have. They keep them there because then the government supplies them an amount that is sustainable, and so they get their vote. But they never raise them. In my view, what conservative Republicans want to do is elevate people. They don't want people to be on public doles unless there's an absolute necessity. And then if there is, we're there to help. But what they want to do is raise people up out of that situation by better education, by job opportunity. You get job opportunity when you make business more affordable for the businessman. Those are the things that I see.
Ralph, there's nothing. Conservative is not a dirty word. It's actually a really good word. You can't live your life unless you're conservative about how you pay your bills, how much money you make. You can't do it, okay? Let's just take that. You don't spend more than you need, okay? Or you make. It's a clear thing. The problem is that the needs of the few are outweighing the needs of the many in this particular instance. It's who has the loudest voice. Well, guess what? The point is that it doesn't matter your party affiliation. The people that I spoke to all said the same thing. They can't afford it. The taxes are too high. These were Democrat, Republican, Independents, Conservatives. They were all of them. So what we need to understand is we need to come together for those reasons and look at the people who are going to give that to you, or at least talk about it. At least go out to Albany and say these things and let people know it.
So Russ Cugino's with us again today. So Russ, you have some comments here?
Yeah, there's a lot about this campaign is all about New York and what the shape of New York is. In a recent Marist poll, people voted on the poll that 40% said that New York State is on the right track and 60% said it's on the wrong track. And one of the things that they talked about, as what you said, was utility bills. This state is awash with natural gas, and yet the Zollner Democrats, the Hochul Democrats, are putting a cap on that. They're not allowing this state to grow. There are more. I've talked to some wildcatters that drill, and they're not. Of course, they're going to other states because they can't drill in the state. Do you know that there's at least 50,000 jobs that average $100,000 a piece that are going to Pennsylvania rather than in New York State? The Marcellus Shale that's in the central part of this state is a bonanza for this state, and you've got to ask Jeremy Zollner if he's going to continue to vote to keep a cap on the natural gas that's right underneath us that would pay an awful lot of money to an awful lot of families and make New York a lot wealthier.
What you just said, I want to say this. The problem that I have found being out there is there's a lack of education to the population, Russ. We are not doing a good enough job as conservatives, Republicans, even independents, and even Democrats. I don't think we do a fair enough job getting the information out. Imagine telling a lot of people what you just said. What's going to happen is we're going to fall off the cliff in 27. Then we're going to have to do some radical things that people are really not going to like. So, to your point about being a conservative, what is wrong with understanding these issues today, planning for it in the future, so we're ready for these things to happen?
The problem, Dan, is when you say getting out the information, radio shows like this attempt to get out the information, but scan the Buffalo News or, use it to put under your birdcage. But, I mean, that's the problem, is the news media is with the liberal Democrats. They do not put out, what is true, what working family people want. You're right. There's many more working family people out there.
But there's a salvation to that, Ralph, right now. There's a salvation. And the reason there is today, because the Buffalo News is only getting 16% of the people, their news from that. They're getting 15% from the internet. They're getting 20% from TV. So we have a unique opportunity as a conservative, as a Republican, as whatever we are. We have a very unique opportunity because now it's fractured. Even though they are liberal, the Buffalo News, we now have other avenues that we could pursue, like radio stations, like TikTok, like the social media.
No, I get it.
We got to be better at that.
Yep. I totally understand that. Bob?
Chairman, look, a lot of the listeners on this station are conservative, they're Republican.
For sure.
And I'm going to appeal to you listening today. We have an opportunity on February 3rd. And, there are a lot of issues that Dan has talked about today that are important to this state, important to this community. But the most important issue is for you to remember Tuesday, February 3rd, there's an election. An election where we can make a difference and maybe start to make some change in this state, in this community, by electing a conservative Republican to the state Senate. February 3rd. It's a Tuesday in winter, before Valentine's Day. You got to remember and get out to vote. If we got 50% of the Republicans and conservatives in this district out to vote on February 3rd, Dan Gagliardo wins. We got to get off our ass as Republicans and conservatives and go vote.
I want people to go out January 24th.
That's right.
That's what I want.
That's right.
I want to utilize the 10 days that we have in early voting. We're spending the money to do it. We can't let the Democrats usurp that situation. Absolutely. So I want all of you out there January 24th. I want all of you who can't go to the polls to ask for an absentee ballot. So I've made this argument before. The Democrats have controlled early voting, although we're catching up. But today the Democrats still control absentee voting. We have to catch up. And anybody who can't get to the polls, anybody who thinks for whatever reason they're not going to be able to go on January 24th or through February 3rd, or are worried about a snowstorm or the weather, you can get an absentee ballot. All you have to do today is request
That's it.
You articulated this to me in our conversation, Ralph, the other day, or a couple weeks ago, and you said it. We need to be proactive.
Exactly.
We need to go out there. We need to make sure people know this. This is why I'm convinced that the leaders in these parties, the conservatives and the Republicans, understand how clearly we could win this if we just take a few extra steps to make sure that people do call up for an absentee ballot.
Yep, and I just want to say as well, look, if you believe in Dan Gagliardo, if you believe that Albany and New York State is a mess, go to GagliardoForSenate.com and you can make a donation to Dan's campaign. That's Gagliardo, F-O-R, Senate.com.
So let's talk a little bit about what the New York State has done here. So we have public financing of these campaigns. So again, we have to use the tools that the Democrats put out there. And the way it works, Bob, go ahead and explain what can be. We can gain $350,000 can go into Dan's coffers.
That's correct.
Tell us how that happens.
Yeah, well, I for one am not somebody that's ever been in favor of public financing
either,
for campaigns.
but
But you know what? The Democrats in Albany passed it and Hochul signed it.
And you gotta use
and we as Republican conservatives, let's take advantage of it. Let me explain it. If you go to GagliardoForSenate.com, you can click on the Win Red icon and make a donation. You make a $10 donation, $10 to Gagliardo for Senate. The state will give Dan back $120.
Is that's
let me say this.
to me.
And if you make anywhere from $10 to $250, $250 brings $2,000 back.
Let's focus on a $10 donation. Puts $120 worth of availability for you to put your message out there. $10. Now, if you can afford it, and I encourage everybody that can, if you give $250, the maximum number,
$2,000.
$2,000. Yep. Up to a total of
It's up to 12 times.
$350,000.
$375,000 for the Senate. He can get $375,000 back from the state for every contribution that's made from somebody within the district, from $10 to $250.
So,
I say, tonight if you're going out to dinner, hey, why don't you forego your appetizer and send that $10 to GagliardoForSenate.com. Yeah, we had to get to 150 people to qualify for the matching funds, and Dan started this effort the Saturday before Christmas. By Christmas Eve, Dan had over 150 individual donors make a donation of at least $10. And that's going to return to him over $120,000 already. But we're allowed to get up to $375,000. So we need people today.
The momentum is there.
The momentum is there. 150 people in 5 days made a donation to Gagliardo for Senate.
All right, so we're going to have to end this. But if you live in the town of Amherst, you know Dan. He's been to your house. A small donation, $10, $50, $100 donation is going to be met with tenfold from the state to help Dan get this message out, to help you get somebody that believes in your values, to help you to attain something in New York that we haven't had in a long time and don't have unless we can make this state competitive.
I just think that we're in a great. The momentum is there, Ralph. You cannot believe it. In 4 days, we got over 150 donations to qualify. So it's incredible. Now we have to raise a certain amount of money to get us to that level of $375,000, and we're already well beyond half
if
that.
you gave Gagliardo for Senate $10 last week, it's a new year. Give him another $10 now.
That's right. All right, everyone. It's important. These things are important. Don't let them just go.